Democrats have said that the White House's proposed budget is a recipe for a shutdown. Do you anticipate that's true, and what role do you specifically expect to play?
Well, I think the president himself said after the temporary budget was approved that what this country needs is a good shutdown. I totally disagree with that. I think we've been through that before. We've seen the harm that it's caused our economy in Colorado, 50,000 federal employees that got laid off. Rocky Mountain National Park, it's closed, and that does a lot of damage to Estes Park. So I think we ought to do everything we can to avoid a shutdown. I do think that his budget does not reflect the mainstream of American political thought, and I think working both with Democrats and Republicans, we're going to revise it.
As I'm sure you saw, Al Green, the congressman from Texas, called for Trump's impeachment on the House floor this week.
Oh, yeah.
Your Senate colleague John McCain said he feels Donald Trump is approaching a Watergate moment.
Yeah.
Do you see it that way? Give us a sense of where you and your colleagues really are.
Well, I think every day there's something else, and I've called from the very beginning of this for a special counsel and an independent investigation of some kind, and now we have gotten that. So just this week, a special counsel was named. It's important for us to let that person do his work before we reach a judgment, but I think it's very important for us to let this go the distance and to see where we are at the end of the investigation.
And speaking of appointments, what do you think of Gerald Lieberman as a possible FBI director? Is there somebody else you'd like to see?
I would rather see somebody who's got a long-standing set of experiences in law enforcement, who's been a U.S. attorney before or has worked in the FBI before. I think that'd be a better choice.
Do you have someone in mind specifically?
I don't. I will say that I think they selected very well in terms of the special counsel himself. That's the kind of person that we should have running the investigation.
In your view, is a President Pence preferable to a President Trump?
I don't think. I think that what's preferable to me is a president who understands the separation of powers, who understands that having an independent judiciary is a virtue of this country, not something that's negative, who understands the free press is something that's cherished and critical to our democracy. So that's what I hope for in a president, and that's what I'm trying to stand up for in Washington. I think we're a long way from making any decisions about a President Pence or an ex-President Trump.
To shift gears a little bit, the DNC chair said this week that a line should be drawn where the party is fully aligned as pro-choice. Whereas Nancy Pelosi and Bernie Sanders were among some who talked about the party as being more of a big tent where one's stance on abortion need not be a deal breaker necessarily. Where do you draw the line?
Well, I personally draw the line believing that women should be making these decisions, not the government. And my voting record demonstrates that and reflects that commitment. I believe that's true. Having said that, I think there are Democrats who are going to have different points of view about a lot of things, and I think it's good for our party to be a big tent party, and we should fight these arguments out. I do believe that those of us in the Democratic Party that support strongly Roe versus Wade and a woman's right to choose represent the vast majority of people in our party that are Democrats.
So we're in Boulder, home of Neil Gorsuch, and you opposed the Democrats' filibuster that led to the Republicans exercising the nuclear option. Do you think Democrats will come to regret that decision?
I do. I don't think it's just the Democrats' fault. I think Democrats and Republicans together in the Senate, who have an institutional responsibility, it seems to me, to preserve the rights of the minority and the checks and balances that are not written necessarily into the Constitution, but in the practices of the Senate, have a responsibility to uphold those. And I think in the case of Justice Gorsuch, we've now gone through the Democrats invoking the filibuster successfully, and then the Republicans invoking the nuclear option. The result of all of that is that the next two justices, who might very well be appointed by Donald Trump, can be approved with just 51 votes. And what I've said on the floor was, if you don't like the sound of Justice Gorsuch, how do you feel about the sound of Justice Pruitt at the EPA, who doesn't believe in climate change, or Justice Sessions? And both of those people could become Supreme Court nominees without the Democrats being able to say anything about it.